Now we will hear a keynote from Ansel Brown, an inventor and recording artist who will talk about his musical journey and experiences developing music beats and writing songs. Please send all your questions for Ansel to inventioncon at uspto.gov. Ansel, you're on.
Thank you, Dennis. First off, I want to thank Joyce Ward of the USPTO for suggesting to Dennis that I be a keynote speaker. It was a good surprise, and as I thought about what I wanted to talk about, I I I really had to dig into what I was going to do today because, in one perspective, I am a country artist. But in another perspective, I'm an inventor, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a singer-songwriter, and I am an artist. So as I went through the process of developing this talk today, I'm just sharing an experience today. That's what I'm doing. But there is one little gem that's going to come out of this, I think, for everybody. And I'm very excited to get to that. But thank you, Dennis, and thank you to Joyce Ward for thinking of me and having me on. I'm humbled. Um, this is a group of people, I'm sure, on here that I would relate to every single day of the year as an inventor and as an entrepreneur and a songwriter. This is humbling to me. So thank you. As I said, I do have a unique perspective to share, and that is that everything that I started in my life from the time I got out of high school became impacted by one decision I made. It's quite a while ago, but the invention that I made back in the day really did set the beat for me in terms of my life cycles. And when I say life cycles, I mean life cycles. I tend to change direction about every 3 to 5 years from a creative standpoint. And that has been a tremendous experience, ongoing experiences and aspect of my life that is really priceless. And I've had more experiences than I can count that I wish everybody could share in. Today, I'm going to focus on how I got where I am in terms of this particular experience and how it relates to everybody that's watching this. So I'm excited and I'm thrilled to be here. As an inventor, I came into this space not really knowing what I was doing, but I had an invention, I had an idea, and I decided to share that idea. Now, let me preface this with obviously, we're dealing with the USPTO here and, Copyright Office, and you need to protect your works. So just that's a given. So when I talk about sharing, I'm talking about once you've been to that, place and you've protected your works. But with that said, I decided to share my idea and I raised some money. And I'll get into the idea later in the story, but it really triggered everything for me. And in the process, I was able to meet a inventor that maybe a lot of people are familiar with, maybe they're not familiar with, but the game Twister. The guy's name was Chuck Foley. And he invited me after I invented my litter box. He invited me to a class of his just to sit in. And then he continued to stay in connection and contact with me. And what he parlayed in his conversations with me, to me specifically, was that I had to come out and do this and share this and go forward with it no matter what the obstacles were. And so I lay a lot of my future success that I would have in both music and business with Chuck Foley and this invention. So I wanted to get that out of the way first because we're at InventionCon 2021, right? So it's just a weird. I wasn't even thinking of this when I started thinking about what I was going to talk about, but it makes perfect sense. it really did catapult me into a different trajectory that literally changed my life. And a lot of that has to do with a specific word that I'm going to use. And this is where the gem will come from for most of you, but it's vulnerability. And as a singer, somebody that has to convey passion in my songs to connect with people, vulnerability is it. It's the key. It's the thing that you put out there that can be rejected, accepted, loved, hated, you name it. That's vulnerability. And as a singer-songwriter, nothing connects with people more than a song, in my opinion. That's probably the best way to connect with anyone, whether it's a beat, whether it's a melody, and whether it's specific storyline or words. Vulnerability is what makes you connectable with. And the same thing goes for ideas, inventions, businesses, theories, everything else. It comes from a vulnerability where you're going to share that. You're either going to be accepted for it, you're going to be critiqued for it, but you have to be willing to set it out there and let people experience what your idea is. So that's really where I started to hone in when I'm getting into this one particular experience. And I have so many experiences that I could share that I could spend a week talking about them. So I had to really hone in on one specific one. And in this case, I decided to hone in on a song that I wrote called When You Fly. At that time, so I'm going to give you some backstory of the song, and then I'm going to get into what it turned into for me personally, and how the experience was something that was completely priceless, something that I wish everyone could experience. And it literally just changed my life from the get-go, really. So my family were pilots or are pilots, and they were incredible people to me. And this was my in-laws at the time. And I got to go up in plane. I got to experience going through the clouds and actually opening a window and touching the clouds. Yeah, it was amazing. So I started writing this song called When You Fly. I didn't know where it would go. I didn't know that was the name at the time. I just started writing. And before you know it, I had a whole song, and it was called When You Fly. And I started sharing it with the family at the time, and they brought tears to their eyes. So I knew I had something. I didn't know what, but I knew I had something. And I had learned through the invention process that vulnerability, right? So I had to take a chance on myself. I had to either be rejected or accepted. And I chose at that point with the invention to allow vulnerability to be a part of who I am. And that eventually got to this where I wasn't afraid to share my ideas or my stories or my songs. And I'm going to digress just a little bit, but I want to make it clear that when you are creating, whether it's an invention, a song, a movie script, a business, a way to make people's lives easier and better, you don't keep that to yourself. You take a chance and you let people know about it, because it does nobody any good if it sits on a piece of paper or a napkin or on your computer and never goes anywhere and never does anything for anybody. And I want to make that crystal clear as I go through this, because that is the essence of where all of your experiences and your successes, and yes, even your failures, will come from. But that will change your life in ways I can't express to you and nobody else can, because it's your life. And we all are individuals. And when I sing to people directly. I don't sing to the masses. My song, I want it to speak to each person that hears the words, hears the beat, hears the melody. I want it to talk to that person. Not everybody, that person, whoever that is listening to it. So I put myself out there with my in-laws. It was very nerve-wracking to me at the time, even though I was used to doing that. And they all accepted it. They loved the song. And then before you knew it, I was in kind of in the pilot community, sharing the song, going to Oshkosh and the fly-ins at Oshkosh in Wisconsin on pod. Also was in at the time I was driving happened literally forget where I was at times. I was so into my writing on those trips because it was a good time for me to do that. I wouldn't recommend everybody do that because I really it was like I blacked out a few times. I never got into trouble, but I was writing and singing, and before you know it, I was on I-40, and I'm like, how did I get here? So, but this one particular time, instead of writing, I was listening to talk radio, and one of the astronauts was being interviewed for an upcoming mission. And they started talking about the end of the space shuttle program. And of course, I wanted to be an astronaut. Unfortunately, wanting to be an astronaut and becoming an astronaut are two different things. If I had learned what I learned after the invention process, I might have become an astronaut. But before that, I had not opened myself up to vulnerability like I did after the invention. And so therefore my trajectory in life was different than I had dreamed it to be. But I love NASA. I love space flight, the shuttle program. One of the biggest and best chapters in human history was coming to an end. And I got a little emotional as I was driving, and it hit me. They need to hear my song When You Fly, because it is about what they do. It's about the beauty of it, the adventure of it, the love of it. Not just pilots, but space astronauts, and what they get to experience when they're up there. I wish I could experience that. I know everybody probably does. But okay, so I had a song. Now, what do I do with that song? I'm doing one thing with it, but now I'm thinking, what if I share this? I'm probably going to be rejected. They're probably not going to get it. They're probably not going to take me seriously. I was known at the time, but I wasn't known at the time. I was still just a normal singer songwriter trying to make it. I wasn't anything other than that. And the only difference in me and other people seemed to be my connection level with people, and again, being vulnerable. So I looked up the head astronaut at Johnson Space Center in Texas, and since it's a public role, I was able to find her email address, and I emailed her the song, and I just said, listen to the song. I know the shuttle program's coming to an end. You really need to just listen and hear this song. I think you guys could use it. I think it could make a difference in how people experience this farewell to the shuttle program. I sent the email fully expecting that I would be rejected or ignored. That was the two. Yeah, that was my going bet, was just ignored. And about 2 weeks later, I got an email back, and it was from the head astronaut. And she said, I love this song. Wow. And she said, I'm sharing it with my boss. So she shared it with her boss. And then I communicated some with her boss. And then her boss said, listen, we can't do anything here with this, but we're going to send it to DC, to the administration, and we're going to see if they can do something with it. So at that point, I'm going, okay, this is cool. This might be, this might be possible. We'll see. So a month went by, another month went by. I start thinking, it's in bureaucracy now. It's probably not going to go anywhere. So I continued to do podcasts and pilot things. And actually about a year later, in the summer of 2011, I was filming a video of flying with my song When You Fly. And I came in from just having gotten out of a 1946 Staggerwing aircraft, which was an amazing, amazing airplane. I was in the conference room and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, you've got a call. It's from NASA." And I'm like, what could this be? So at that point, I answered the phone, and sure enough, it was the people in DC in charge of NASA and their artist collaborations. And they proceeded to tell me, "Hey, we've looked at Beyonce, we've looked at Clint Black, and we really like this song. We want to invite you to come to Kennedy Space Center and perform this song for our final space shuttle launch for the Atlantis." Of course, my jaw dropped. I had no idea that this would happen at this point. It was only 3 weeks until the final launch. So then I started going, okay, how am I going to make this happen? I was not prepared for this. Did not think it would happen. But I put myself out there, and now I've got a payoff. But now I got to figure out, how do I make the payoff turn into something that's going to work? That's a whole nother story. So I accepted. And then at the same time, they said, "Are you okay if we have you not only for the final space shuttle landing, but we would like to have you at the final space shuttle launch. We would also like to have you at the final space shuttle landing. And if you're open to public speaking, we would like to have you speak to the entire shuttle program employees who were going to be going on to their next chapters in life. And we would love for you to inspire them as they start their next journey." And I said, "Yep, I'm in. I'll do it. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'll do it." And so they that started the wheels in motion. 3 weeks later, me, my family, and a couple of friends were at Kennedy Space Center in Florida as they prepared to have the final space shuttle launch. I got to experience things beginning at that moment that I will never forget. I wish everybody could have experienced it. And I can't tell you how incredible it became in my life for a very long time. So I got there, I performed, my song "When You Fly" in front of thousands of people in the Rocket Garden at Kennedy Space Center. This was prior to the launch. I got to go up to the shuttle before it actually launched. And then I got kind of the surprise of the time that I was there, which was, we were told, "Hey, listen," and this was our tour guide from NASA speaking, the person that was in charge of us while we were there, making sure we did everything that needed to be done for the day and the event. And she said, "Look, I'm extremely pumped up and excited about this because this never happens. But the administration wants you and your family to experience something that nobody gets to do, not even us employees get to do it. In fact, President Obama drove underneath the shuttle Endeavour in the hangar as they were disassembling it to be put in museums somewhere across the country." And she said, "Okay, President Obama, underneath it, look at the shuttle tiles, learn how they protect the shuttle on reentry, get some really cool view of the bottom of the shuttle, and on your way." Jimmy Buffett, same thing. Look at the tiles under the shuttle and how they work. But guess what, Ansel? You and your family and me, that's her, the lady that was escorting us, we get to go all the way around the shuttle Endeavour on the scaffolding surrounding it. I could get this close to it. I couldn't touch it, but I could feel the energy. And they allowed us and my family and friends to go all the way up to the tail. It was huge. It was massive. It was bigger than I ever imagined. It was also a soft material, which I never knew. I thought it was a hard white material, but it's not. It's like a fabric. It's really cool. So that was the first little surprise. Then after that, I was getting time for the shuttle to launch. And they took me and my family and my friends, and they walked us through some astronauts. And at that point, I felt really good. I wanted to serenade and sing a cappella to every single person that I saw at that point. I was like a kid in the candy store. So I became really vulnerable and I started singing to astronauts. And now, astronauts to me are rock stars. I wanted to be next to every astronaut and get a picture with every astronaut that I could. But I mostly wanted to sing my song When You Fly without music to each of them. So I did that the whole way to the shuttle launch. And, I don't think I embarrassed myself, but I definitely got their attention. And, they kept telling me they can't believe they're hanging out with me. And I'm going, no, I can't believe I'm hanging out with you. This is the real deal. You are the most amazing people on this planet to me right now. And so they walked us through the crowd up to the fence for the final launch. I felt guilty being done that way, but that's what they did. They walked us to the very front. We stood there, my boys, me, my family, and just watched this last launch of the Space Shuttle Atlantis. The concussion, the power, the heat, the energy was not describable in my words, but it was that good or better. And, it's an image I won't forget. Once that was finished, we were in the administration building waiting for some things. I heard a voice that sounded familiar in the room next door. And that voice was none other than Peter Cullen. Peter Cullen is the voice of Optimus Prime in all of the Transformer movies and TV shows. So I knew the voice. And I asked at that moment, I said, do you mind if I just walk in there and say hi? So I did. I walked in there and I said hi, but I didn't stop there. I was serenading people, so I decided I was going to serenade Peter Cullen. Now, this was risky, doing it a cappella, and knowing that there was some emotion there. I started singing, putting myself out there. I could have been rejected, but I wasn't. I turned and looked at him in the eyes, and he had tears falling down his face. Then I had tears falling down my face and a big old lump right here. But I kept singing and I finished. And him and I became NASA buddies after that. And he helped me in other adventures of my life. And we also helped NASA together. This was just the tip of the iceberg. This was an incredible experience that turned into more than I could ever explain in one speech. But again, it didn't happen without me being vulnerable. Just soak that in a little bit. Be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be exposed to criticism, to acceptance, whatever it is, because you won't know until it happens. So with that, I then went and proceeded to come to the final landing where they put me on national radio on country stations across the US. And I was NASA's representative that morning talking about when you fly and what happens when you fly and the greatness that comes out of flying and space flight in particular. And again, this was just because I put myself out there. I was on the radio. I was watching a landing of Atlantis that only astronauts from the history of the program, some administration people, as well as senators and congressmen and national media, worldwide media actually. That was all that was allowed at that event. It was in the middle of the morning, very dark, and I got to see the Atlantis come in from space, and that was an amazing experience as well. And while that was happening, I got asked to, what was I going to do for the final event? And I said, I don't know, but I feel the people in this program, they were massively, massively a part of this program from their heart out. And it was a daunting task to be asked to go up after the NASA administrator, who I got to hang out with before the farewell ceremony at Kennedy Space Center for all the employees. But I was literally asked to follow up the NASA administrator and then inspire this group of people who were essentially losing their jobs and having to move on to other things. So that was a lot of pressure on me. But again, come back to this over and over, vulnerability. If I am vulnerable to those people, then I can inspire them. And again, I'm going to come back to the invention, the businesses. I've had agencies. I do branding, trademarking, all that kind of stuff. But you don't become successful by keeping it to yourself. So I decided I would share some of my innermost thoughts about space travel, about the astronauts, about those people that were making this happen for all of us to enjoy and watch and learn from. And I got to sing on stage at the Rocket Garden again, this time a much bigger stage with a much, just a really important audience. And it was an incredible, incredible experience. Again, there was a trifecta for me. It was 3 amazing experiences all wrapped up into the finale of the shuttle program. And when I saw this banner laying on the floor at the NASA headquarters, they asked me, Ansel Brown, who was never involved in space travel as an astronaut or a scientist or an administration person, anything, no involvement whatsoever, other than being a part of each of those things that happened at the end of the program. They asked me to get on a knee and sign my name to a banner that would be put in perpetuity within the shuttle exhibit at Kennedy Space Center for all of these employees. And you can see it right there. I said, Atlantis, you were amazing. And that really was not good enough to describe what the Atlantis was to me. There's my name. And then later, I walked outside and all of these employees had signed it. And I was like, I really should not be on this thing. This is for them. That's how I felt. But I had to look at the impact I might have been having and accept that I did have an impact with the people that were there experiencing this for the last time. And so, as humble as I felt about it, wow, it was just an incredible thing to see with all of those names of people that really were a part of this program and did so many things that we've never done in human history. It's like being an inventor. You never know how you're going to change the world. It's like being an artist where you never know what life you're going to impact with your words and your music and your beat and how that is going to change people. I get goosebumps when I see this picture. It just, I had no clue this was going to happen. No clue. So getting back to vulnerability, and the one thing that I want everybody to take from this, and there are other pictures that you guys can show that were a part of this. I don't know if they were happening while I was speaking or not, because I'm kind of into this. But I invented a cat litter box. I dreamed at night of helping people find an easier way to clean poop out of something. That's right, I used that word. That was my dream when I invented that cat litter box and sold it on QVC. That dream turned into a reality because I made myself vulnerable. It was kind of an embarrassing topic to go out and say, I want to raise money for this. I want to put myself in position to do this and create this and sell this. Back me, get behind me. Yes, I'm dealing with something that's not clean, but it's my idea. And that changed my life and catapulted me to a place where eventually I would do things with children's hospitals, racing, National Football League, NASA, you name it, children, veterans, and our beloved veterans. And I would meet people and astronauts and heroes that I never knew I would meet because I took a chance on that invention. And I listened to Chuck Foley and his advice, and I made myself vulnerable from that point on. I get a lump when I think about it because I want everyone to experience this. I want everyone who has a dream, who has a song, who has an invention, an idea, to share it. Don't hold it. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't make it about you and what you are going to get out of it. Share it to see what happens, because if you don't share it, you will never know what can happen. You don't share it to get rich financially. You don't share it to do anything other than impact people. And that will impact you beyond your wildest expectations. But you have to put yourself out on that island by yourself, no matter who you are, where you come from, what you know, and what you've been taught. This is you, and you are putting yourself out there for people to discover what you know and what your message is. Share your ideas, share your songs, share your movie scripts, share your business ideas, share your inventions. Let people know. Don't just keep it in the computer or in your filing cabinet. You get it out. If you write that song in that next great beat, you get it out. You don't keep it to yourself because people might not like it. People might not love your melody. People might not even like your beat. God, people, there is somebody out there that needs it, that wants it, that will love it. I am incredibly humbled to have been able to speak today. This kind of thing with you all, you inspire me. I can't tell you how it feels to be able to tell one of many stories that changed my life just a little bit. I went on, because of this vulnerability, I went on to get 2 Space Act agreements, work with Peter Cullen and NASA, and have those Space Act agreements to help youth, to help our veterans. And I think I'm probably the only country artist that has ever had 1 or 2 Space Act agreements. But I wouldn't have experienced any of that or had that opportunity had I kept When You Fly to myself and the pilot community. Worse than that, what would have happened if I just kept it to myself because it was too intimate and too mushy and whatever you want to call it? I could have just kept it to myself, but I didn't. I took a chance. And I want everybody to do the same thing. If you have an idea today, please do something with it. Protect it, then talk about it. Get it out there. Do what you know you have in you. And I don't care where you come from. Your passion is what people will connect with. And passion comes from your vulnerability. You open up your heart and let people know how much you believe in what you are creating. I thank everybody for paying attention to this speech. Again, I just wanted to tell you one experience, and I wanted to give you that one little gem of vulnerability to take from this. But if you have questions, I'd love to answer questions. I I really enjoyed being here, and thank you, Dennis. And if Joyce Ward is watching, thank you for thinking of me. And by the way, I met Joyce Ward through all the NASA experience. So that's really why I'm here today. So I thank everybody for having me. I'm glad I could share this, and thank Chuck Foley. He's not with us anymore, but he did more than he could ever know that he did for me, because he made himself vulnerable to me, and he was famous. So thank you very much.
Okay, Ansel, what we're going to do now is we're going to paste some questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay, so Ansel, while we're waiting on those questions to come in, I'm sure they're coming in. So
Make yourself
you
vulnerable,
and
people.
you and I talked about beats, and I told you that when I was young that uh, I was asked, do I listen to the words or do I listen to the beat? And I told you, as a young man, I listened to the beat because that's what gave my body a rhythm. And so I could care less about the words. So, but you, on the other hand, you have to deal with it from the perspective of making sure that the people will respond in two ways: to the words and to the beat. And I just heard you say that you took a chance by singing your song to a lot of people. So, in the delivery room of coming up with a song, what are you interested in first? Is it the beat or is it the words? Or
I think,
are you going to tell us?
yeah, I think it's a combination of the words and the melody to me. I'm not believe it or not, I've written a lot of songs, but I am not a musician. But I can create melody and I can write the story, that the melody is tied to. I was not as tied to the beats as a lot of people are, especially if you love to dance. Mine is always, I let the production come together and then the beats happen, right? So hopefully any song that I write will have a cool beat and you'll get into it. But no, I would say definitely the melody along with the words and what the song is about, whether it's a funny song that you're going to laugh at, or a sentimental song, or a ballad. That's really talking about vulnerability. When you start singing to people, you have to become extremely vulnerable, and this goes for any singer songwriter or any singer, period. In order to connect, you've got to feel what you're singing about. So it's a little bit of an acting role, right? You've got to get into the character of the song. And if you're not vulnerable, then there's a glaze over it that can't connect as well with people. So a lot of that has to do with what the song is about. Obviously, if it's a real just fun song that really just has nothing to it but funniness, you're going to have a different experience than you will if it's a ballad and it's about a breakup, or it's about love, or whatever. So that's really where the whole vulnerability thing for me when singing happens comes through.
Okay, so someone asked the question, does working with a recording company change my rights to my music? Can you address that?
Yes. So the way this works is there are a couple different ways. If you are, when you say recording company, do you mean, okay, so I don't know if they mean studio, we'll go this both ways, or if they mean like if you become part of a record label. So it could be two different things. A recording studio, everything is still private. If you are paying the studio to record your work, you are still the owner of the master, which is the song. The full song is called the master. You have the master rights. You also have what's called the copyright, which is the songwriters. So if there are 5 songwriters on it, all of them have ownership in that copyright. But in terms of studio time, it's a work for, you're working, they're working for you. As long as they're not doing it at their cost or paying for it, then your master rights are still yours. If you were to have a record label, now let's get into that. Typically, the record label is going to pay for all of the recordings. They're going to, unless you've negotiated a really good deal where you get master rights somehow, they're typically going to own the masters. You're still going to be a songwriter if you're a writer, and you will still be, have a right to those royalties if there are royalties involved. But typically the record company owns the master if you haven't negotiated that. In fact, they can own everything. They can own all of your merchandise too. So if you ever get involved with the record company, you really want to make sure that you are protecting yourself, make sure that you are there for you, and you're gonna be looking out for yourself. So otherwise, they'll get a lot of what you should be getting a part of if you can help it. Okay, I see more coming in here.
So they're asking, what is your opinion about music arrangers not getting royalties or seek copyright protection for their contribution to a song or songs?
So me personally, if I work with somebody that arranges my song, unless it's my paid producer, which that has happened, if it is a friend or another writer that just happens to be a good arranger, I always include that person. And I don't break it up into like, oh, this person did 1% of the 100% of the song, right? I don't work that way. If somebody is involved in my song, it's 50-50, 25, 25, 25, 25, 30, 30, 33, 33, 30, whatever. It is, I always do it evenly because everybody has a part in making that song a reality. So I typically, if I have somebody write one word in a song for me, they change one, that one word could make the difference in that song being accepted by people or rejected by people. So I have the mentality of everybody's a part of this. So if you're putting music together that brings my song as a whole organism together, I'm going to include that person in the copywriting. That's my suggestion. You don't have to do it that way. People do it based on what they feel the percentage is. That's just not how I work as a songwriter. I like to involve, if they're invested in me, I'm invested in them.
Okay, we have a question about asking what organizations are there to help artists protect their work?
Okay, so that's a good question. There are lots of songwriter organizations. Nashville Songwriters Association, International Association, NSIA, I believe, or AI. Lots of organizations exist, and you just have to Google them. So if you're in pop music, or you're in rap, or you're in country, I'm sure there is a writing organization that you can become a member of, where you can not only find co-writers, but you can find, and collaborators, but you can ask people who have been through it, who know what it's like to protect their work.
So, Ansel, if we have another question. So if someone were to take your music and sample it in their music, they're asking, do artists need to clear every sample they use in a piece of music? Are there exceptions?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand that question again. Let me think about this. So they're saying if an artist takes a piece of a song from another artist and includes it in their song, is that what they're saying?
I'm thinking that's what they're asking. Not sure.
That's a good question. I've never done that before, and I don't know anyone that has. If you're talking about, let's say a DJ puts a mixtape together, or they remix a song and they add their own beat, their own element, their own, I've had DJs come up to me and go, hey, because I had a song called, my first radio release was called Mine's Bigger, about my heart. And I had people coming up to me going, hey, we really want to remix this for clubs. So that does mean that they're going to take your work and they're going to add their own elements to it. You know, your song is still there, but it's longer, it's got a different beat to it, possibly it's faster. Um, and I never had a problem with anybody doing that, but I don't know the law on it, whether it's absolutely legal or if they could open themselves up to potential, you know, issues if they aren't talking directly to the singer, you know, the because not all singers write their stuff, right? I mean, there are so many good songs out there by songwriters that don't sing that it would be silly for singers not to use other people's songs. So there are a lot of famous singers that have songs they never wrote. So I don't know if you'd have to go, you may have to go to both the songwriting publishing company like BMI and go to the record label that owns the master and go, you know, it may be a quagmire, or if you just do it and let it happen and then get a letter telling you to stop. But I never had a problem with it because to me, it was marketing my music.
Okay, so someone is asking, what advice can you give for someone trying to make it in the music industry today?
Vulnerability. So I get back on that. Um, you have to put yourself out there. So that means doing a showcase, inviting industry people to come watch your showcase, prepping a band, getting a band together. You know, obviously they have TV shows you can try to audition for now where you can become a star overnight. I wouldn't recommend that way of doing it. I would do what you love. Make sure you love writing and singing, or just singing, and you know, try to be realistic, but at the same time, you have to become vulnerable. And the more vulnerable you are, the more passion that comes out in you. And that passion is what really sells people on you. So just, you know, that's the advice. And, you know, don't be fearful of starting your own independent label, making your own waves on social media and your own videos, even if they're homemade to start, and just getting people behind the passion that you show through that vulnerability of putting yourself out there for people to critique. And that's what I would do today, because when you join a record label, you know, they control who you are and what you're about. If you want true freedom, you do it for yourself. You make the fans that you make through social media and concerts and clubs and things like that, and you put yourself out there, and people will connect with you.
Okay, so we have another question. What kind of marketing did you do and take advantage of to promote your music?
So the one advantage that I had for myself when I first started making waves on social media, this was a long time ago, so I don't want to date myself, but I was a branding expert already. Because of the invention that I had, I ended up having to learn how to design and market from scratch. I was a finance guy. I didn't think I had any creativity in me. Once the invention happened, all that changed, and I learned how to do, you know, logo design and packaging design. And I did it all myself because I couldn't afford to get anybody else to do it. So by the time I got into music, I was doing national brands like Baskin Robbins and Family Dollar stores and M&M Mars, and I was doing things. I knew how to market myself, so I was making myself seem bigger than I actually was, and I was able to do that through branding, you know, trademarking, and putting myself out there in terms of a product. At that point, I really looked at myself as another one of the products that I've helped market, and that gave me a big advantage in the indie world. And that, you know, got me debut spotlight artist by the Country Music Association and Who Knew to Watch with Jewel at the same time Jewel was coming out in country music. And I did that without a label. I started my own label. I teamed up with an ex NFL African American ex NFL star who loved the music, got completely behind me, and we went out and we took over Nashville for a little while, and it was a wonderful experience. Um, and we, you know, we turned heads the minute we started, but a lot of that had to do with the branding and the design that I had already invested my own time and energy in to make it look like I was bigger than I was. You got to get people to believe you're somebody, right? And that's from the marketing standpoint. That's the way I looked at it.
Well, so someone has asked, have you ever used a platform like SoundCloud or another platform to feature your music?
I have. I have. I'll be honest. I took about 6 years off from music, just getting back into the studio now. And Dennis, I will say that you're part of that catalyst to me getting back into writing and singing again in the studio. And there's a long story. It's been a whole nother speech on why I took a hiatus. But you know, well, say the question one more time because I got sidetracked.
They want to know, have you ever used a platform like
Oh,
SoundCloud or
yep.
another platform to feature your music?
Yes, I have used SoundCloud in the past. I've used some social media tools like I can't remember the name of it, Reverb Nation, and I've used a platform to put your music into distribution, which is there for anybody to use. And there are lots of options. You just need to search for music distribution for independent artists, and you will find a wealth of information on Google about trying to get your song distributed and heard. Also, internet radio is a great way to go for indie artists, singer songwriters, because radio is kind of a pay to play kind of game. And you have to really have something happening to get an indie artist in those circles from a radio play perspective. But yes, you want people, I'm not afraid to give away music either, honestly, because if I give away a song to that I know is connecting with people, I know that's going to come back to me, and I know more people are going to follow me, and more people are going to relate to what I'm singing about. So I don't have a problem with that, especially if you're just beginning, and you're trying to make a name for yourself. Obviously, you still want to protect your rights at the end of the day, but you can absolutely find ways to get your music out there and heard today.
So someone is asking, did you trademark your name for use on your website and other social
Okay,
media?
so I've trademarked a lot of brands. So I'm wearing one right here. This is one that I just trademarked. Um, but Ansel Brown is kind of my unique name. So I didn't really trademark the name. And there are some rules about what's considered a formal name, for instance, versus coming up with your own Juan Loco or something like that. So no, I did not trademark my name. I've had several logos, but I've changed them a couple of times, so I haven't really trademarked the logos either. But there is something called, and I'm not the expert at this, but I do have enough experience working with attorneys and people at the USPTO. There is, if you're using your name or your logo in business and you're actually got a business and you're making income in some way through that name, there is some protection there. You want to have a TM on it. You don't want to have a registered R yet, but a TM tells people you plan at some point to do it. You plan at some point to register that as a trademark. So, you know, you may want to do that, especially to your logo at some point. But you also have some built-in protection if you're using it in a trade or business.
Okay, so someone is asking, would you mentor an up-and-coming artist? If so, how would they reach out to you?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. I have actually thought about managing artists because I really do understand what it takes to do things in this industry, but I haven't really ever done it. I've had a few people come to me and hint at it. I'm not actively doing that right now. I would say anybody can, if you go Ansel Brown fans on Facebook or Ansel Brown on Instagram and you want to reach out to me through a message, you can. Um, uh, that's probably the best way to get in touch with me right now. I'm like I said, I've taken 6 years off, so I haven't really done a lot the last 6 years. This is really kind of the restart for me. Those life cycles that I talk about that I go through every 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
And
Yes.
but you know what? If I heard somebody that had some talent and had the passion that I want them to have in terms of their vulnerability, I would absolutely think about it.
So, Ansel, we've come to an amazing end, and I would like to thank you. This was a very engaging talk, and I felt the beats and lyrics of Ansel's music through your testimonial. So, I would like to thank you so much, and you can sign off now, and we're going to move on. But, Ansel, thanks so much. And by the way, Joyce says thank you too.
Oh, tell her I love her.
Okay.
No, Dennis, it's been great getting to know you and the team, and you guys have done a wonderful job. And I appreciate everyone that's been involved and the other speakers, and everybody out there. Just stay vulnerable and allow yourself to be vulnerable and make your dreams come true. I'll see you. I'm signing off.
Okay.